Okay. Thanks, you guys, for starting that process of getting your name, your organization, what your role is in your organization or your community in that chat box. This is good. It's great to see some names I'm familiar with, and some of you are new for me. So we want to be really respectful of time. We chose this time to try and accommodate schools as best we could. And we are recording this, so please keep that in mind, and we will be able to share this out in case part of your school or district is able to attend this, but not all of you. So we will make this available after. So before we get started here, you are hopping in for more information about the purpose and a chance to answer ask questions and receive some answers about our Nebraska Farm to School Institute application that is currently live. So we'll be dropping links into the chat box, so keep your eyes on that. We'll try and put any pertinent information that you can easily click on and find direct links to more information as we move forward. So again, this is what we'd like to do, is see who you all are, and you can kind of browse through there. You probably know each other, some of you. And we'll keep an eye out on that, and we'll keep dropping that request in the chat box. So as people hop on, they see that that's what we're doing right now in that chat box. So moving forward, let's just get started on talking about what is this project and where did it come from. First of all, this is a project that is a collaboration, a cooperative project between the Nebraska Department of Education and Nebraska Extension. And you'll see here some members of the team joining us today has been McShane Jewell, and Jordan Luxa didn't expect to be on, but I think she is able to be here, so she may hop in and out as she can. I'm Sarah Smith. I'm with the Nebraska Department of Education, and I work on local foods in schools. And we'll be growing this team as we continue to plan the Institute. But specifically for this project, we originally had the dream of pulling this institute together by pulling these two strong organizations that do farm to school work, that do work in local food systems together to host this event. Originally, we had anticipated that it would be in person, but plans have changed. So it is a virtual event this year. And you'll see here members of Extension team a lot of work is being done in their food and nutrition health team. And so we have a lot of folks from Extension joining us from that region or that area. And we also have joining us Ben McShane Jewell from the Nebraska Extension Regional Food Systems Initiative. And I will mention they just recently in February offered a regional food systems summit that was fabulous. And Ben's going to share that link in the chat box with us. I encourage you to take a minute to view their website, see what they offer. But also we had a farm to school breakout session from that summit, and you could learn a lot. There were really good stories told at the national level, but especially at our local level. We heard from Omaha Nation Public School in Macy and from Gearing Public Schools out in the Panhandle. So lots of great stories there. And if you want to learn more about what's going on, get some ideas, learn more about farm to school, that's a really timely opportunity that just recently happened. So that being said, we want to just start the conversation by making sure we have our foundation kind of firmed up on what does it mean when we're talking about farm to school. And many of you probably are familiar with this, but we like to look at farm to school with these three elements as the primary focus. So we look at farm to school as involving procurement, so local food coming into the school through school meals or snacks. We look at expanding or developing school gardens, whether it be greenhouses, outdoor garden spaces, indoor tower gardens, an opportunity for students to be engaged in gardening. And we also look at the experiential education component. So maybe it would be farm tours or farmers coming in to the school to teach about agriculture or to help taste test products that they've grown on their farm. So we're really looking at any of those components can be defined as farm to school. There's no complete definition. It's really a malleable definition. And many of you might already be doing farm to school activities and not have known it. So that being said, we just wanted to do a quick gauge and ask you a poll. So we're going to put a poll up here. And what we'd like to know is, I need to make you, let me see here. We'll launch this poll. So we'd like to know, what is the top of the options we're giving you? What is the top farm to school activity that you most want to be seeing at your school? So I'm going to give you guys a minute here to answer this question, and it is a little wordy. We're looking at growing outdoor greenhouse or school gardens, growing indoor gardens, serving local produce on the fruit and vegetable bar, serving local beef, pork, or chicken, serving school-grown produce in the cafeteria, offering a taste test of local foods, taking an on-site farm tour with students, teaching about growing and selling Nebraska-grown products, and hosting a farm-to-school promo event, like meeting your farmers. So I'm going to keep that up there, keep thinking that through. And while you're answering that poll, let's just take a minute here to look at why are we putting time and effort into a program like Farm to School. And I don't think you'd be here if you didn't have interest or a belief that there is a benefit to your community and to your students, to your school system as a whole, from farm to school activities. So we really like to see how, or talk about and hear stories about how is farm to school affecting and such a benefit for our students, for our farmers, for our economy, and for our communities. So there is quite a bit of federal support, national support for farm to school as a whole. USDA does have a community food systems team. This project is funded by USDA farm to school grant funds. And it is because there are benefits across the board to farm to school. And we know that students are gaining additional access and interest in healthy local foods as they have more education opportunities that open up with school gardens or with experiential education like cooking lessons, farm field trips. And with that, we see that some meal participation rates with farm to school activities, they're growing. There's an average of a 9% increase in school meal participation when farm to school is included in a school's planning. It generates that extra and increased revenue for schools. We also see that kids are eating more fruits and vegetables when school gardens are part of their learning. And nationally, the number is 44.2% increase in more fruits and vegetables being eaten. And farm to school can serve as a significant financial opportunity for our farmers and our ranchers, our food processors. That opens that door to more institutional sales. So let me see if I can share this poll. I meant to have Ben do this part. What I'm really seeing here is that the number one farm to school activity, it's tied between growing an outdoor greenhouse school garden and serving local beef, pork, or chicken. There's also a lot of interest in growing produce at the school and serving it in the cafeteria, and some interest in hosting a farm to school promotional event. I'll share those results with you here. So those are some of the whys to farm to school, which led us to really want to hone in on how can we begin to increase capacity and build skills for building farm to school activities at our schools in Nebraska. And so the purpose of this institute really is to provide an opportunity to learn more through workshops, through networking, and through education provided in the form of the Institute. This Institute will be held the week of June 14th. And at the Institute, we'll be offering some of these specific topic workshops and giving you an opportunity to learn from others across the country and also in our state doing different types of farm to school activities, whether it be school garden growing or whether it be funding your school garden activities or your school procurement activities, looking at beef in schools programs. So we'll have a variety of workshops that will address your interests there. In addition, part of this institute is to help you grow a team at your school or district level where you'll come together and work on action planning. So you'll be developing goals that will span the 2021 and 2022 school year. And what we like to really focus on with this type of a project is that you're taking an opportunity to take small steps forward. It's not necessarily looking at being an expansive like 10-year plan, although we'll be working on some long-term goals as well. But what can you do to get started, especially being cognizant of the situation we've been in this last year with the pandemic? So where are you at right now? What kind of farm to school activity might you be having? Let's assess some of that. But then moving forward, where do you want to go in the next year? So you'll be having those teams to work on action plans and moving forward with some funds that we'll make available through mini grants. And you won't be doing this alone. There are coaches that will be available to work one-on-one with each team, both at the Institute, the virtual Institute, and throughout the coming school year. So Ben's going to talk more about that as he walks through the application here in just a couple of minutes. All right, close that poll there. So we wanted to share with you, we brought in a extension educator from Cornell Cooperative Extension to work with a community of practice group at Nebraska Extension. And she was a coach and also a team member at a couple of different farm to school institutes. One was the Northeast Farm to School Institute, and another was the New York Farm to School Institute. And so she shared her story with us. We're just going to quickly play this video. It's about 2 minutes, and she just tells us her story in a brief snippet here of what she shared with us last week on this community of practice call. So I'm going to play this here for you quick.
The Institute at large, again, I worked with schools for many years before formally participating in an institute, and I was just blown away at the ability of the Institute by design to bring together key members of the school community around a shared goal in a way that I haven't seen happen on its own. And so when I say key members, I heard you guys talking about partnerships when I signed on. I always say farm to school takes a village, and it really does. And this team, the Institute requires a well-rounded team to be able to apply. And I'm not on the review committee for those proposals, but I suspect they look at who has buy-in there, knowing that it takes more than a school food director or a dedicated extension specialist or a really enthusiastic teacher to make these programs take root in the school community. It takes far more than that. So in the team that I coached in Hamburg, they had administration on board. They had the food service director and the assistant food service director. They had community volunteers. They had the curriculum director, which is a really good partner. This is somebody who, sets up staff development days and is a direct liaison to all the teachers within the district. And she joined us in Vermont for 3 days. Of course, Extension was there. We had the representative from business services there. And I can't remember, teachers are usually there. In this particular one, we didn't have a teacher, but again, we had that curriculum director. And for us, all of us had never met each other before. So I hadn't met anybody, but people within the district hadn't met each other before. And here we are in Vermont for 3 days. It helped that in both institutes, I will say there was no cell phone reception. I'm sure that was not by design, but it did help that we weren't able to plug into, our normal busy lives. But one thing I think about the retreat is that it enables team members to really immerse themselves in shared learning. So both institutes had different tracks where you could participate in educational workshops. The action plan development piece of that, and I don't know if yours in Nebraska will have this, but the action plan development piece I thought was really important. We sat down for 3 days as a team and really just worked through their action plan. So if you weren't kind of in a workshop learning or in what they call the learning journey, because the one in Vermont was on a farm, which was really cool, you were working on that action plan, taking everything that you learned from those workshops.
Great. Okay. So she was inspiring. She had only really positive things to say about how their progress went at the school level once they joined the Institute. So she was a great example and just made us feel like we're taking good steps forward in our state with this type of opportunity. So that being said, I don't know if I mentioned up front, but I do want to encourage you as we move forward now with the remainder of our time, really getting a little bit deeper into the application, that you don't hesitate to ask any questions in the chat box. And as we move forward, we can address them as we're going, or we can address them at the end. So we have a few more minutes of slides and details to share with you, and then we're going to have plenty of time beyond this to be doing some questions and answers to answer any questions that we haven't addressed yet. Okay, so I'm going to pass off this next portion over to Ben.
All right, thank you, Sarah. I'm going to put in the chat here a link to the Department of Education website where you can get more information about the Institute and the application process, but we'll go through some of the details right now, as Sarah said. So a couple key pieces of information for you to know. The deadline is March 16th to apply, and it's an online application process. So you got about 2 weeks here to get the application completed online. We feel like that's still plenty of time. It's not a very difficult application. You should be able to get that done pretty quickly once you get started on it. And whatever school you're applying on behalf of, or if you're applying on behalf of a school district, that school has to be a participant in the National School Lunch Program. So that should be true for most schools out there across the state. But if you're unsure, you can get in touch with the food service director at your school, or feel free to reach out to one of us here on the project team. We're happy to help you figure that out and just confirm that with you. We'll share our contact information here at the end of the presentation in a little bit. So one of the requirements that we're asking you to have in place as you apply is to have at least 3 team members identified as part of your application process. So we ask that you have 1 school administrator, food service manager, and then you can have 1 additional team member. So we would like for that 3rd team member, we recommend it be either someone from extension, an extension educator, or a teacher within the school. But we've kind of loosened up those requirements a little bit, so that's not required. But you do have to have a minimum of 3 team members identified, and we'll ask for their name and contact information in the application process. And just to emphasize that 3 team members is a minimum. You can have up to 7 members of your team on the application. And we really encourage you to think broadly about who could contribute to your project. It doesn't have to be someone inside the school building. It could be a parent, a community nonprofit, or perhaps like a local hospital wellness coordinator. It could be a student. Students are great team members. They could be ambassadors to the other students to kind of generate some enthusiasm for the project. And if you're doing a school garden project outdoors, you might consider having a custodian on your team. They can be really important to get access to tools or water sources for a school garden project. So we encourage you to be creative and thoughtful about who needs to be at the table from the beginning of the project and really get them included right away. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so as far as the actual application questions that you're going to see, we want you to kind of keep in mind that this is a competitive grant process. We'll be able to award up to 8 teams to join the Institute. So please be as thorough as possible when you're completing your online application. It really helps us kind of make the best decisions about who to invite to the Institute. You know, if your application's missing information, that could be a cause for us to kind of skip over you and pick another team for the Institute. So please be thorough as you're completing that application. We have set up the application so you can save your progress as you work through it online, but it is recommended to get all your information set on paper or in a Word doc, perhaps, before you apply, and that will help you kind of more quickly get through the online application process. So as far as the actual questions, you know, quite a bit of the application is going to ask about the individual school or school district. So you can apply from an individual school and have a specific project for that, or you could apply at the district level. And so you might have some projects in mind that you want to do across your entire district. So just depends on the project that you're planning to do and the team that you put together. So a lot of those questions up front are going to be about that individual school or the school district, including the address, phone number, kind of basic contact information. We're going to ask you about the total student population in the 2020 to 2021 school year. And we also want to know the % of students that are receiving free and reduced price lunches. And so part of the reason our grant funding, we are going to accept at least 4 of the 8 teams will have more than 50% free or reduced lunch. That's kind of what's part of the application process for us. We want to know, get a better understanding from you about the broader community that your school serves as well. So if there's any kind of primary agricultural industry in your area that you can identify, if you're in a community that's had a large immigrant or refugee population coming to your area recently, anything that helps us better understand the community that you're working in will give us a better picture of the opportunities there, and we can kind of work with you better that way. We're going to want to know some basics about your current farm to school efforts inside the cafeteria, inside the classroom, and in the broader community as well. We want to know why you're applying to participate and what you hope to accomplish. So some of that is just kind of, it should be pretty straightforward. There's a lot of kind of open response. If you haven't started a farm to school effort yet at your school, that's totally fine. That's what we're here to help you get started, but just indicate that to us so we know where we're at. It really helps us kind of plan for the Institute for the kind of materials that we'll provide to you. All right.
One question come through just regarding team members and making sure we're being really inclusive of who should be involved in your team or who could be involved in your team. And one question came in is, are farmers or community members involved in agriculture invited in for this? Are they a good fit? And absolutely, they would be a tremendous asset to a team when planning farm to school programming. So that's something to keep in mind as you identify who could be on your team.
Yep. Great question. All right, let's skip ahead to the next slide. And then, so a little bit about the timeline here for the process for the whole project. So as we mentioned, March 16th is applications are due online by April 5th. So within a couple of weeks, we'll be able to turn around and notify the teams that have been awarded and will be included in the Institute for this year. We're going to host the Institute the week of June 14th. We're still kind of finalizing exact dates and times for those for that week, but you can anticipate about 15 hours of time the week of June 14th. Then after the Institute, your team will be expected to meet regularly. You'll be assigned a coach who will help you throughout that following year to kind of stay on track with your project and get that completed. Probably in monthly meetings starting in July, then through May of 2022. Your funds that you'll receive as part of the Institute process need to be expended by April 15th of next year. And then you'll have until the end of May to report out on how you expended the funds and get your reimbursements in progress there. And then lastly here, just a little bit of detail and information about how you can use the mini grant funds. So there's kind of several different areas. And again, this will depend on the project that you're putting together. So if you're doing something inside the cafeteria with maybe sourcing some more local products, you can use those funds to buy equipment or supplies that you would need to kind of make that run more smoothly, or to offer taste tests to kind of get students engaged there. You can spend those on materials, supplies, or labor. If you want to host farmers, some networking activities for farmers to come in and get connected with your cafeteria staff. Or you can use it to actually do training or development for staff if there's going to be some new kind of menu items or recipes that you'll need to kind of prepare the staff for. Unfortunately, you cannot use the funds to actually purchase anything that's part of your reimbursable meal plan. So if it's part of your regular, a national school lunch program that you're getting reimbursed by the federal government, the USDA from, this is also federal funds, so we can't use them for that as well. If you're thinking about a garden project, you can spend it on materials, equipment, and supplies for any of the garden activities. You could also use it for educational opportunities for students, and perhaps traveling to a local farm to do a farm tour or to visit a farmer's market. If you need some new curriculum that would kind of help you do some nutrition education for students, that is definitely allowable, or visits from chefs or cooking competitions, whatever kind of fun, creative things that you want to come up with for your project. So just the kind of couple things that are not eligible for use of grant funds. Again, that purchasing of reimbursable meal components, purchasing larger equipment or permanent structures, and then any indirect costs. So those are just kind of a couple things that not allowed. Otherwise, you got quite a lot of latitude to really tailor how you spend your funds to make your project go smoothly. All right, so with that, I think we can start taking some questions. Looks like there's some in the chat already.
So we have one question on the logistics of if all identified team members have to attend all the sessions the week of June 14th.
Yeah, and I think that would be ideal. Yeah, I mean, we certainly recognize that, you know, people might have restrictions on if they can attend every single thing. Ideally, yes, everybody would be there from your team for all of the sessions, particularly as your team is a big part of the Institute will be your team having time together with your coach to really lay out your action plan. And so getting that input from everybody on your team would be really helpful, but I'm sure we can make accommodations if something comes up for somebody on a team. Looks like we got something here from Kelly.
And I had answered that question about team members attending on June 14th in an email, I think, yesterday. And I just want to reiterate that, you know, we had intended for this institute to be in person, and we have moved it to a virtual platform, and we have kind of had to do some shifting. And because of that, I think scheduling is a challenge for everyone right now, and trying to figure out how to make things work in the summer. So yeah, like Ben said, one thing I would encourage you to do is try to build your team beyond 3 team members so that you always have at least 3 team members at as many of the workshops and the action planning times as possible. So more is good with your teams as you start to pull a team together.
Looks like we got an answer there for Kelly. Can you use it on rent for the land you plan to use? That's a good question.
Yes, because these funds are coming from USDA Farm to School grant funds, it's going to depend on what they allow. And I don't know that off the top of my head, but we can get the answer and get back to you, Sheila. I don't feel confident that I know the answer to that question. That's a good one.
All right. Other questions? Anybody feel free to put in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask, and we're here to make sure you get all the answers you're looking for.
When we're talking specifically about a school garden for our project, because we have a brand new FFA and ag program this year, and they want that. And I said I'd do it with them. How much of the produce of it has to go back to the cafeteria?
Yeah, great question, Sheila. I don't think there's a requirement on that from our end of things. I mean, I think that would be part of the kind of action planning you put together with your team and in the application process. I mean, we encourage you definitely to be connected with your food service director at your school and see if there's opportunities there. It's a great way to get kids kind of hooked into a garden project, is if they're seeing it come into the cafeteria and they're, you know, they take a lot of pride usually on that, kind of seeing their hard work in the garden translate into their friends and peers kind of being able to eat that food during the lunch program or as part of a salad bar or whatever it might be. But I don't think we have a specific requirement. Jordan, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as how much of that has to go into the cafeteria. I mean, I think as long as the students are engaged in the garden and, you know, it could be something you send home with students as part of working in the garden, or they could just have it for snacks at the garden or in the school. So I think it's really up to your project team to kind of determine how you want to use that product that comes out of it.
We had the tower gardens here, and when they grew the herbs, they had so much that we dehydrated some of them so that we can use them in our pastas and stuff to help use more of them. And they did them as a project, and the kids came in the kitchen just to help preserve them longer so that we can use them longer. And they did a write-up on it.
That's amazing. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
We're specifically trying to look at a project that will become self-funding by having a sweet corn plot and a school plot? Is this the kind of thing we're looking for?
Yeah, I think so. You know, Sheila, did you say that you're looking for it to become self-funding? So you'll be growing some product that you might then sell to the greater community?
Yes, that's the hope of the FFA teacher. I am the food service director, and we want to work together so we both benefit from it. Her program is new and mine needs advanced.
You know, I think even if you were just doing one of those two things, I think it's great you're going to do both, but either would be great as well. So there's no one size fits all here. And we won't have any regulations as long as you're doing something on this ag education or nutrition with local foods and procurement. It's really open for your interpretation. So you are on target and hitting a lot of really interesting goals. So yes, that would be fine. It would be great. And we'd love to hear how that goes and be able to keep sharing these stories out. Even right now, we're learning from these ideas or these stories coming up. So yeah, that's a great idea. And
Thank you.
definitely allowable. Yep. I'm not seeing other questions in the chat box right now. Feel free to unmute or add your questions in here. Or if you have ideas that you want to float by and make sure that they're on target, absolutely feel free to do so.
So here is our contact information for Jordan, Sarah, and myself. We're happy to stick on this call, and you can stay on and ask specific questions like Sarah mentioned, or feel free to contact us at email or phone numbers listed there, and we're happy to help and support your application process. But we'll hang on if others want to hang on and ask some questions or get some clarity on things. Really appreciate everybody joining today.
I jumped on a little bit late. I was curious, did you go over, are all the mini grants awarded different different amounts, or what is the general or average amount that's awarded?
Yeah, great question. We didn't actually cover that. So the range of mini grant amounts will be from $2,000 to $3,500, and it will depend, on the specific project. We're going to try to balance, between the 8 teams. We have a certain amount of pot of funds for mini grants. So we'll kind of evaluate based on the applications that we get and the specific projects that the teams are working on, and we'll work with you to try to cover as much of your costs as we can. But yeah, somewhere between 2,000 and 3,500 is where we'll land.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.